honored to be here with Andrew Burchwell, the founder of the Ohio Blockchain Council, so our sister organization.
Yes.
And eager to talk about why you're here in Texas and what you're doing in Ohio and the synergy between Texas and Ohio and power. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. And obviously I'm here in Texas because Texas is out in front. You're leading the charge in terms of developing this industry. And as I told Lee when we started this, we just want to take what you guys are doing well and run it in our state and be a complement to what you're doing. So thank you.
We are so honored. So tell us about the history of the Ohio Blockchain Council. When did you start it and what was the thinking behind it?
Yeah, we started 9 months ago, actually. It was a very recent effort, right? So we were actually at Empower this time last year, and we decided, based on what we saw, that this needed to happen in Ohio. And we saw that there was a vacuum of lack of organization happening in the state, and we felt like it didn't make any sense why Ohio wasn't also out in front as a state, as an industrial state, as an energy state, to really be able to do the same things that Texas is doing for this industry, for the energy industry, for the Bitcoin mining industry. We started and we worked very quickly and closely with the Ohio Chamber of Commerce. What we decided to do was say, we're going to take an industry that's new but emerging and legitimize it quickly from our perspective. And so working with the Ohio Chamber of Commerce in Columbus, we've been able to say, look, traditional manufacturing, look, energy producers, generators, transmitters, look, legacy industry, this new thing's coming, but it's good business just like you're running your business. And so we wanted to integrate ourselves into that community and say, we're here to stay, and we can be a complement to the things you're already doing, because we saw that blockchain technology, Bitcoin specifically, is going to integrate into every single sector of the economy somehow at some point. That's my thesis anyway, as a maximalist. And so we just wanted to get the attention out there as quickly as possible. And we worked with the Digital Wildcatters to throw an event in September in Columbus.
Really?
Called Amplify. Look out for this next September as well, and say, we just want to throw a great party like they're throwing here.
Yes.
Bring all of our friends up from Texas and elsewhere and really showcase what we're doing well in Ohio and elsewhere so that we can continue to build.
That is so exciting and amazing that it got off the ground so quickly. So tell me a little bit about yourself. What was it? I'm sure a lot of people may have looked at what we were doing and said, hey, let's do that. But what background did you bring to enable you to get it up and running so quickly?
So I'm a geophysicist by background. I was working in the energy industry. Yeah, I was working oil and gas adjacent. I decided when I was in college, I didn't necessarily want to move to Houston, which is where you go for energy tech. I was fortunate that there's a facility in Columbus called Battelle that I spent my early career at. And Battelle manages the national laboratories, most of them for the Department of Energy, and we do contract research for the federal government and private clients. And so we were working on energy technology solutions for the oil and gas industry, carbon capture and storage specifically. So I was managing programs in the Midwest, sequestering carbon in partnership with oil and gas companies to really demonstrate research technology that could then be commercialized. Yeah. So we were working on decarbonization, and we were figuring out how do we solve problems for the energy industry to allow it to survive, thrive, and flourish, right? With regulation, with certain ideas that are coming down from the environmental sector. And we basically were saying, well, let's just take the carbon that we're pulling out of the ground and put it back in the ground. What I recognized, and personally what I felt, was that if we were to solve that problem of carbon in the atmosphere, it was going to need more than what we were doing from a geologic sequestration perspective. And I had been thinking about Bitcoin since 2011, very early on. I wish I would have bought some back then. Yeah, no, I wish I was. I know I take solace in the fact that I would have sold it at $100 if I bought it at 10, so it doesn't matter. But I'm
really good at timing the bottom.
I'm telling you, yeah, it seems to be continuing the case. Yeah, we're all falling forward there. But I really recognize Bitcoin mining as something that could solve the problem at scale of how do we make systems more efficient? How do we reduce waste? How do we tell a better story from an energy perspective at scale and in general for these industries that I think are maligned in ways that I don't necessarily agree with, but I think we can all agree that we can do things better from an engineering perspective, from a waste reduction perspective, and quite frankly, I think that's what's beautiful about Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining is that it does solve that problem as well. So that's why I'm here now.
So you had the know-how, you had the connections. So how is it you were able to speak the language of oil and gas and, the concerns about the methane capture and all that. So how has it been received? Were you able to capitalize on your network there, or have you been pulling people in, or?
Yeah, 100%.
How's it going?
What I realized from the research perspective at a very high level was that if you can't communicate challenging scientific problems to the layman, you're not going to get anywhere. And as much as we thought it was a good idea, what we were doing, even simple linguistic tricks, like instead of calling it sequestration, call it storage, right? You don't want people to ever
I don't know what that word
right,
means.
yeah.
What?
That seems daunting, what you're doing.
Exactly. The glaze goes over the eyes and they just shut you down.
So when we talk to energy partners, this is not a hard problem to translate. When we talk to community partners, I think we can get really lost in the weeds technically. And I felt like that was my advantage, was that I had a perspective of translating challenging scientific problems and solutions very simply in order to tell a good story, right? So that people not only are not confused, but they're willing to participate in something they don't necessarily understand. And I think that's how we actually move the needle with Bitcoin mining, is that we make it simple. I call this the grandma test. If I can't explain what we're doing to my grandma, I've not simplified it enough, right? And so as much as we love energy, as much as we love the hard technical problems of proof of work, which are really important, 99.9% of people are never going to want to get that deep technically, and we have to make it a better story for them. So I think if we get to broad adoption of Bitcoin, which is our goal, it's our mission as far as I can tell, we have to make the system simple, we have to make them easy to use, easily accessible, and trustable. And if we do that, everything else falls into place. It's just, I don't know how email works, but I use it every day, right? And I don't need to know how email works. And I think the same thing's true of Bitcoin eventually.
Exactly. Now, tell us about Ohio. So it's also an unregulated energy market.
That's right.
Sounds like there's a lot of synergy between, is there a lot of differences or similarities, or?
A little bit of both, I think, yeah. I think if we look at Texas and ERCOT as an example, the similarities are an unregulated market that has an ability to be flexible in ways that these large load consumers will enjoy. Differences include the fact that actually Ohio, or PJM generally, right, is actually a more stable grid overall, because it doesn't have, let's say, some of the stresses on the system that ERCOT might have because of overcapacity from a use case perspective, from a geographic distribution and transmission perspective. And what we actually have to our advantage, and one of the reasons why I love telling the story of Ohio and the broader Appalachian region, is that we have a legacy of industrial manufacturing heritage that required power, that required large industry, that required all of these large, substation utilities and development for the 20th century sort of industrial boom of our economy.
Yes.
I mean, Ohio and the broader Appalachian region was the backbone of industry in the 20th century. And then what we saw in the fiatization of our economy is that manufacturing moved globally, it moved offshores, right? The population moved from the Ohio River Valley to the coast because that's where the jobs were. And so what was left behind, besides, frankly, a dispirited population, was a lot of industrial infrastructure that we can now look to reuse, to revitalize these communities, right? So we have a more stable grid, and we have an underutilized capacity that's just desperate for this type of, partner.
So to our viewers who may be thinking about mining projects, and they often come to Texas because, we're known to be Bitcoin friendly, what do you say to them? Would you ask them to consider coming to you, and how would they get started? Would they contact your council, or?
Yeah, every day I'm asking people to come to Ohio because, frankly, I just think there's a real need for it. Frankly, Texas has done so well that it is congested in a way that I think we can all speak to as maybe a good problem to have in some sense, but it is something that will allow for longer lead times eventually for these large load consumers. And I think what Ohio has is an ability to move more quickly at certain scales. And I think, the one thing we could probably say is maybe there's a little bit of a difference in the power price in terms of the broader market, but if you start to implement expertise, some of our partners at the Ohio Blockchain Council, I'll give a shout out to Scioto Energy. Ileana was on the panel with me today, and they're experts at being able to play the market such that you can, amortize and basically make over time your power rate lower to the point where it's actually more beneficial than maybe just a fixed price at a certain, 4 or 5 cent range. And so we have such underutilized capacity. We have such ambitious folks who are willing to pull people to the state. I'm never going to tell people don't go to Texas. I am going to say, if you decide that there's another place you'd like to go, I frankly think Ohio is the next best market, and I think we'll continue to see that play out.
Very interesting. Well, I have to say, I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
I have family. My family was originally from Ohio as well, so roots there. And obviously with Bitcoin, it's this beautiful synergy where we're not really competitors, right? Everybody's boat goes up. And so the more innovation, the more adoption that happens, it helps the whole network.
I agree.
So I think we could have this conversation for longer. So we're gonna have to continue it. But I'm really excited about the ways that we might continue working together to orange pill.
I'm looking forward to it. I think Texas has been the tip of the spear, and we're so thankful that you guys are out in front. What we recognize is that Texas can't and shouldn't do it alone. And I think
nor do we want to.
Politically, Texas is a very interesting place because it is what it is. Ohio will be the swing state for the national election cycle in 2024. And I think if we orange pill and make Ohio a Bitcoin state in this next election cycle, we all move forward together in that way. And so that's our goal. I think we can accomplish that, and we'd love to work with you to make that happen.
Wow. Well, best of luck to you.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully we'll see you at the summit and continue the conversation.
Thank you. And I hope to see you in Ohio at Amplify, throwing by Digital Wildcatters and Ohio Blockchain Council in September. We look forward to it.
Send us an invitation.
Will do.
Love to be there.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks everyone for watching our video. Had a blast here at Empower. And if you want to learn more about what we're doing at the Texas Blockchain Council, I invite you to like, subscribe, and follow us for more content. See you next time.